Hello and welcome. How are you? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Hot Tea with Holly. I am Holly and I am having a cup of hot tea today. I help you use strength training and intentional nutrition to help you get the body that you need so that you can keep up with the life that you love. And I am here every week at this time, broadcasting live with a cup of hot tea, which I'm very excited about. If you know me, you know there's always a cup of tea here. And today it's a new one. Well, the truth is, it's an oldie recycled. This is one of my favorite teas that I've been drinking for years and years and years, and I forgot about it. Something reminded me to go back and visit it. It is amazing. So this is from Herney & Sons, and no, this is not sponsored. They have no idea who I am, but they have won award after award for this tea. This is the hot cinnamon and spice tea. The original was always a black tea, which is what I'm drinking, but they also have an herbal, which is to die for. In fact, I have often used their herbal hot cinnamon spice whenever I've been in more of a dieting phase, when I'm cleaning up my diet and I'm wanting to reduce my body fat, I will use their herbal hot cinnamon and spice anytime that I just feel like I'm craving something or I want sweets. When you just get that, that mood for something, right? This is one of my absolute favorite teas, and I've been drinking a lot of it lately. So cheers. If you are joining me with a cup of tea, please say hello. I am here every week now at this new time. If you are watching this in playback, please say hello below. And if you are here with me live, please do the same. Tell me you are here. Tell me what's going on. Let's jump in. Today we are talking about Detox 101. This is a topic that someone from my community asked me to cover years ago. And what's funny is years ago, I had mixed feelings about this concept of detoxification. For many years, I thought it was bogus. I thought it was silly. For many years, I really believed the human body has its own pathways of detoxification and my body will figure it out just fine. And while that's true, there's actually a lot of deeper insights around detoxification that can come to the forefront and be important depending on your genetic weaknesses, depending on how good you do at detoxifying your own body. So today I'm talking Detox 101, and I'm going to be sharing with you just some of the basics. Like I said, it's a 101 version. I just want to share the basics on how does the body remove toxins? How does the body remove toxins from itself? What are the pathways? And we're also going to be talking about things that you can do to improve your own detoxification, because the truth is some people need more help with their detoxification, again, dependent on your genetic structure, your genetic weaknesses, and also your lifestyle, of course. So now listen, keep in mind that detoxification can be a broader, more complex conversation. And I am not a detoxification expert. However, I am hoping to be interviewing someone who is a detoxification expert. We might be having someone join our live stream later today, but because today is the day after the holiday, I think there might have been a little bit of a mix-up in communication. So I'm hoping that Randy Gomm, the creator of Radiant Health Saunas, is going to be joining us later in the episode, but he may not. We might have to postpone that part of it. But that all being said, I have quite a rich personal history and one-on-one experience around this concept of detoxification. And so the past couple of years have really been an education for me to really come to understand this concept better. And the biggest thing that I've learned is that it impacts some of us far more than others. So we're going to be talking about some basic concepts here. And if you're watching this in playback, please know I did just say I'm not a detoxification expert, and this conversation could be a lot more complex than what I'm bringing you today. My goal today is to just open your mind to the concept of detoxification and just bring a few kind of wide concepts to your awareness so that you can do a little bit more own research and so that you can take some steps to really protect your health, and you can employ some of the suggestions that I make here today. So if you're here with me live, please say hello. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Jessica. I love that you guys are here. Please use the chat box and say hello. If you're having a cup of tea, I would love to know, what are you drinking? Is it iced tea, hot tea? Are you having a different caffeinated beverage? You know I'm obsessed with the caffeinated beverage game. And today I am loving the hot cinnamon spice. I've never talked about it here in any of my public broadcasts, but the past probably 2 to 3 weeks, I have been obsessed and drinking a lot of this. So let's jump in. So first and foremost, yes, it is true. Toxins are a real thing. Now, there's a lot of controversy out there in the world. There are a lot of experts who dedicate their entire career to this concept of detoxification and helping people heal through removing toxins from the body. And then there is a whole other group of people who say that it's bogus, who say that it's not even a real thing. So you get to make up your own mind. And yes, there is definitely a lot of conflict out in the world around this topic. I'm going to share what I believe. I'm going to share my own personal experience. And I'm actually, if I'm able to, I might even, can I share I don't know if I can share my screen. If I can share my screen, I'm even going to show you some research that just came across my desk yesterday that I think is super powerful in terms of the detoxification conversation. So yes, toxins are real, and I do think that it's wide for you to open your mind to this concept. So what are toxins? Where do they come from? Are they affecting you? Is it something that you should be aware of or concerned about? And here's the deal. So toxins are basically foreign substances, chemicals, compounds, food additives, things that get into your body. And there's a number of ways that these compounds, these ingredients, these elements get into the human body. One of the ways is through the air that we breathe, the water that we drink. The foods that we eat can have toxins or contaminants in them. Medications, whether it is a prescription medication that you take or even an over-the-counter medication. Beauty products, the lotions that you use, the shampoo that you use. To put it bluntly, the human body is a sponge. We absorb, and that is how we improve our nutrition. What we put into our body gets absorbed. That is how we stay alive. That is how we keep our body hydrated and with proper nutrition. We are sponges. Our skin absorbs whatever it comes into contact with. The air that we breathe gets absorbed into our body, and our body ultimately gets exposed to and absorbs and processes some of the contaminants that you are exposed to in your world. And yes, your body needs to remove them somehow. So the human body has a wonderful way of eliminating toxins from itself. And primarily, that is your liver. Oh, I'm so excited. That is your liver. Your liver is the primary organ for removing the toxins in your body. Now, it gets a little more complicated than that. Like I said, based on your genetic coding. There are certain pathways in our body for how we remove the toxins that we are exposed to. Your liver is the number one organ, and we also eliminate some of the toxins that we're exposed to through our breath. When we exhale, we are actually, that is part of the pathway and part of the process of how we eliminate toxins from our body. When our skin sheds, we are eliminating toxins. Through our elimination, whether it's urine or bowel movements, those are two really super important ways that we remove toxins and unneeded substances from our body. And sweat is one of the most powerful and most important ways that we remove certain toxins from the body. In fact, this is where my education started, because the truth is, some toxins like heavy metals can only get removed from the body through sweat. So my own personal history and story is that I, unbeknownst to me, was living in an apartment where I was being exposed to toxic mold. I have the genetic weaknesses. I have a double genetic weakness. I'm a double MTHFR gene mutation, which means my body does not detoxify very well. So I was living in a moldy apartment in Los Angeles, and my body was not able to detoxify the mold that I was being exposed to, unbeknownst to me. My health started to break down. It took me several years to figure out what was going on. And finally, a fabulous doctor in Los Angeles figured it out. I was being exposed to toxins through the mold, environmental mold in my apartment, and it literally was causing a major health crisis. So amongst other things that my doctor was doing in order to help me detoxify my body and restore my health, one of the things that she felt very strongly that I needed to do was start using an infrared sauna. And at the time, if any of you know the story, at the time, I literally rolled my eyes at her. I was like, really? Toxic mold from my apartment had triggered Lyme disease, which I didn't know that I had. It had also really trashed my immune system and created an environment where I now have an autoimmune disorder. And so when she said that she wanted me to be using an infrared sauna 3 to 4 times a week, I literally thought it was ridiculous. So several months went by. I didn't do it. And it got to the point where she really got on my case. And she was like, listen, one of the only ways that you are going to be able to get the mold detoxified out of your body is through sweat. And that is when I started to educate myself on the concept of using intentional sweat sessions to get the toxins out of my body. And I started using an infrared sauna, and everything changed. Everything changed. I started feeling better for the first time in my life. My body started learning how to sweat. Previously, I was someone who wouldn't sweat during my workouts. Even on 100-degree days in Los Angeles, I wouldn't sweat. And I thought that was just my body. But the truth is, that was my body, because I had a handicapped pathway and system of removing toxins, and I didn't sweat. So it wasn't until I started using an infrared sauna that my body learned how to sweat better. And all these years later, I am a devotee of using infrared saunas very intentionally to detoxify the body. So there are several things that you can do to facilitate detoxification. I'm going to go over these quickly, and then when this gets reposted on my blog, I'm going to go into them a little bit more deeply. But I'm very excited to announce that my friend Randy Gomm is here. He is in the green room, and he's going to be joining me in just a moment here. We're going to have a conversation more specifically about his health story, detoxification, and basically the use of infrared saunas to really help and promote healing. So some of the things that you can do to facilitate your own detoxification: drink purified water. Get yourself a really good water purification system. Be selective about the foods that you eat. Eat high quality foods. Avoid packaged foods as much as possible, and aim for organic foods when you can. Limit alcohol and prescription medications when you can, and really keep over-the-counter pain medications to a minimum. Ensure proper elimination. That is a whole other conversation in and of itself. And consider a food elimination detox once or twice per year. I always do this once or twice per year, where I go into a food elimination diet to really reduce some of my exposure to toxins and to also free my body of any that may have been stored. And then lastly, You're going to sweat 2 to 3 times per week, and that can be done through workouts or through some sort of, like I said, intended and intentional sweating environment, whether that is a sauna or any other heat exposure is really an incredible way to induce sweating so that you are intentionally bringing your body into a sweating environment so that you can remove those toxins from your body. So we are going to hold for one moment because there is Randy, and I am going to bring him in. Hold on just one second. There you are. Hi, can you see me?
Hi, Holly. Yeah, I can.
Hi.
I started losing the connection for some reason. Hi.
We did it. I'm so glad you're here. Hello.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. Can you hear me and see me okay? Are you there? Can you hear me? Can you see me? I think we've got a little bit of maybe a internet connection issue. Are you there? Randy, if you can hear me, we are having trouble with the internet feed. You can exit the meeting, restart your computer, and come back, and let's see if maybe that improves your internet feed, your internet reception, depending on where you are. I'm just going to hold for a minute and I will continue talking. Those of you guys that are here live with me, I'm just going to continue with what I was talking about for a moment ago until we see if we can get Randy with better clarity. I'm assuming you guys are hearing and seeing me okay, and it looks like maybe our feed and our internet connection from Randy are not good. Heidi, are you still here? Are you hearing me and seeing me okay? Hi, Patricia. So glad to have you here. Hi, Amy. Tracy Hand Joe's is having hot coffee with cocoa and Q Armor. I love it. You mentioned this last week, I think, and I would love to know more about this Q Armor, but hot coffee with cocoa sounds amazing. Thank you, Heidi. Sounds absolutely amazing. Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much. Hollis Herturk, so happy to have you here. Gina Schmalo, Megan Nicholson. Hi, everybody. So welcome. So happy to have you guys here. Please stay tuned. Today, we are talking about detoxification, and I'm hoping that Randy Gomm is going to be able to join us here. There you are. Much better.
Yeah, I don't know. I kept losing the connection. Sorry about that, Holly.
We got you now. So much better, loud and clear. Welcome. Yeah. I'm so excited to do this with you today. Nope. Still having internet problems here. Let's see. Are you there? Oh, we were so good for a moment. Okay, Randy, I'm just going to hold. And let's try it a third time and see if maybe we can get you in here. I'm wondering if maybe it is your internet connection, whether it's the speed or the quality of your feed. If you can hear me, exit, come back in, and we'll try it a third time. And if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out and reschedule for next time. So welcome, everybody. I am going to be talking a little bit more about just basic things that you can do to help improve how your body releases and deals with the toxins that you're being exposed to. And if you're here with me live and you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the comment section wherever you're seeing it, because I know this is a loaded conversation. If you are anything like I used to be, I really thought that for many years, I really didn't believe in the science or the importance of detoxification and helping my body rid itself of toxins. I really believed that my liver and my body would do it just fine on its own. And that might be true for a lot of people, especially if you live a healthy and clean lifestyle. And again, depending on your genetic coding and weaknesses, your body might detoxify just fine. And what I'm coming to learn is that there are a lot of us that really struggle with keeping up with the removal of toxins from our body. And that is why you hear so much. And there are so many detox diets, detox products. There are so many products and programs out in the world these days because there are a lot of people like me who do see the need and the importance for ridding their body of contaminants. And some of us need more help than others. How would you know if that's you? We don't know, but if you have ever dealt with any kind of a health crisis, that is a clue that you might want to start looking into improving your body's detoxification. And so, like I said, I didn't know until I faced a pretty severe health crisis. And it's when I faced a health crisis and my doctor helped me to understand that my body was not detoxifying properly. That was my clue. The one thing I do know is if you are aware of being an MTHFR gene mutation, that is an indication that you might need to support yourself and help your body in its detoxification pathways. So let's try it again. Randy, are you here?
Yeah, Holly, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. I hate to blame this whole Canadian-American connection, but I tried a different location in my house, so we'll try that.
Well, so far we're good. Don't move. Don't go anywhere. Don't leave Canada.
Okay.
Don't leave your living room or wherever you are because I think we got it going.
Okay.
I'm so glad. Third time's the charm.
Yeah, that's
Welcome.
great. Thanks. I appreciate your patience.
Let me catch you up. So I am just sharing with my community basic detox 101 and the concept of why and how some people need a little bit more help detoxifying. And so a part of my story that you may or may not know is that, I've been in the health and fitness industry my entire career, and I'm highly educated. I have a degree in exercise physiology. I learned from some of the best professors in the field. And for most of my life, I kind of, behind the scenes rolled my eyes at the concept of detoxification until I got hit with my own health crisis. And I was living in a toxic mold infested apartment in Los Angeles. Unbeknownst to me, I'd been living there for 6 years. And within 6 months of living in the apartment, I started getting health issues, but it took me 6 years to even figure out that it was coming from mold in my apartment. And at that point, my health had gotten so bad that it triggered Lyme disease, which I did not even know I had, threw me into a very severe autoimmune disorder and very severe Hashimoto's thyroiditis. My thyroid was completely malfunctioning. I was a mess, to put it short. So a wonderful doctor helped me to go through a series of tests. And that's when we determined my labs came back and my ochratoxin A, OTA, was off the charts. And that's how we figured out that I was living in a moldy apartment.
Wow.
So at the time she said, you've got to start using an infrared sauna. And again, I kind of rolled my eyes. I was like, you're telling me I've got Lyme disease and I should start sitting in an infrared sauna. And I was kind of frustrated, but she urged me. At every visit, I started to do some of my own research and I started using an infrared sauna. And after about 2 weeks of using a sauna 2 to 3 times per week, I felt a difference. I saw the difference. My health was improving. I felt better more than anything. And so that really inspired me to start doing more research. And when I started doing the research, I came to understand it so much better. So all these years later, I am now the proud owner of a Radiant Health Sauna. And it is one of the best investments I've ever made in my entire life. I use it 3 to 4 times every single week. I absolutely love it. And so Randy Gomm is the originator and creator of Radiant Health Saunas. He has his own story of a health challenge that I want to share with you. And I just thought it would be really cool to have this conversation with Randy today as we have a shared history with health challenges. And I'm just so grateful that he is on this earth and he has brought Radiant Health Saunas to light because it really has been a very impactful tool in terms of my own restoration towards health. So Randy, I'm so glad you're here. I would love it if you would just share a little bit about, your story from being a firefighter and getting the diagnosis of fibromyalgia and how it brought you all the way to where we are now with one of the best-selling saunas on the market. I would love to learn a little bit more.
Sure. Actually, you're very kind. I hope to live up to your expectations. I think that I was a firefighter, a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I was on the Whistler Ski Patrol and the Mountain Rescue Team, so pretty active. And then I reached a point where I had musculoskeletal pain, difficulty walking, couldn't hold on to a cup of tea, couldn't turn a doorknob with one hand. And I'll be honest with you, I was quite mainstream. When you talk about rolling your eyes, I thought health food stores were for hippies and yuppies. I was very ignorant, right? So I just didn't know. And so I went down the mainstream path, and they said I had fibromyalgia, and they gave me some NSAIDs, natural steroidal anti-inflammatories, to reduce your pain. And then I had gastric bleeding, and I had to protect, so I was going down the rabbit hole. What was fortunate in my case, not for the other gentleman as a firefighter, about 6 months later, so I couldn't work, couldn't do a lot of things. And this gentleman had the same symptoms. I go, wait a minute, you got two healthy guys and neither of us can work. So I had an adipose tissue sample in a lab in the States called AccuChem Labs. Turned out I was very high in a chlorinated pesticide used in treating wood products. And we'd been to a roofing tar fire, and our kind of ignorance, we were doing external attacks, didn't always have our breathing apparatus on. It was in the 80s, shortage of air bottles and things like that. So, and it wouldn't be fair, to say all I did, Holly, was the infrared sauna to get better. I changed my diet, I worked on my stage 4 sleep, I did a bunch of things, but of all the modalities I used, it was the most effective in lowering my toxic load, reducing my pain level, allowed me to get back to work. So I got very passionate about the saunas. And I didn't have any intent to sell infrared saunas. I was in Vancouver, and so it bothered me that people that had limited funds, there was no places that they could go to detoxify and lower their toxic load and things like that, because I was very passionate about that. And I've been to a similar to yourself. You learn a lot along the way. I was a biologist before I was a firefighter, so I never minded doing research. I went to a lot of functional medicine conferences and things like that. So you're always, learning. And in this case here, I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if there are places in Vancouver and Vancouver Island where people could go, at a practitioner's, use the sauna, lower their toxic load, benefit. So I was kind of back in the fire department. I just did that on the side, sold some units to some doctors at my cost, and went back to work. And the next thing I know is these people were benefiting from the sauna. They say, where can I get one of these? And so all of a sudden I thought, oh, geez, now I'm in the sauna business, right? It wasn't never my intention. But what bothered me on the market, I hate to say this, but there's a fair bit of deception or things that aren't quite true, and sometimes, and you've probably discovered this yourself, Holly, on the net, sometimes something gets repeated to this person, that person. It can even be a well-meaning doctor, practitioner, and they haven't actually taken the time to look at the original research to say, okay, is this actually true? Is it valid? Or is it something that's just kind of spread around and all of a sudden it's the new norm? And so it bothered me on the market that some of the units were toxic. Some of the units were, might have MDF board in them or something like that, off-gassing formaldehyde. Some were high in electromagnetic fields and EF, electrical fields. And so I've had, actually, it's interesting. I had a conversation not long ago. A gentleman said, well, what's the big deal? We're all exposed to EMF. And I said, well, that's true. And I said, but EMF always drops off with distance. So you can have something in your house that gives off high electromagnetic fields. And as long as you're a certain distance away, you're not really being affected. That's not true with EF, but with EMF, electromagnetic fields, it drops off dramatically at distance. So I asked him if he owned an older microwave. I kind of assumed he did, and he did. And so, and I said, and he says, well, I'm not really concerned. And I said, well, if your microwave was on, and would you feel comfortable about standing within a couple of inches of it? It would measure about 30 milligauss or 40 milligauss, somewhere in that range, a couple of times a week or 3 times a week. And he says, no, I would never do that. And I said, well, why not? And he says, well, just to be on the safe side. I said, aha, you recognize there's a potential problem with EMF. I said, what's different in infrared sauna? The difference is you don't have the luxury of sitting 2 feet away. You're sitting within a couple of inches of the heaters. So even though you can't see it, it is causing that effect. So it's just a matter of people, when they're looking for an infrared sauna, whether they purchase a sauna from us or somebody else, you need to ask the questions, kind of thing. So it's the questions that people would usually ask is to say, okay, any company can say they're low in EMF or they have EMF testing. So that's great. Please send me the testing. And when you look at the testing to see, do they actually test the heaters at what they call point to body contact, the wooden slats you lean against, or are they just testing the heaters in isolation? Because if they're just testing the heaters by themselves, they're not including the electrical connection and wiring. And what you and I care about is the environment we sit in, not what the heaters test by themselves. So, a few things like that. And that way that you'll verify if you can get independent testing showing that EMF is low, EF is low, they're not toxic, then great. But just be cautious because there's a lot of units out there and you just have to protect yourself. The last thing you want to do if you're going through a health recovery or any sort of is to be putting some more toxins in your body or being exposed to an environment that's not healthy,
Yeah, and that was a big consideration for me. And I'll be honest, that was a big reason why I went with Radiant Health Saunas. I had used a couple of different saunas, and I would notice that sometimes I would come out not feeling as well as when I would sit in other brands of saunas. And that was one of the reasons I started really doing my research. And, the way that you said it is really important. When a person is trying to improve their health, why would you put yourself in a box where you are just exposing yourself to either EMF or VOCs, volatile organic compounds, from the way that sauna was manufactured? And that's when it really opened my eyes to the different kind of saunas that were on the market. I was looking at all of the different kinds of saunas that I could buy based on the footprint, the space, the investment price, and all of those things. And really what it came down to for me was I really do believe in the problem with EMF exposure. I know that I'm highly sensitive. I know that I have to do everything I can do to bolster my health. Mm-hmm. And seeing the way that you do independent testing of your saunas was a big reason and motivator for me, specifically because if I understand this correctly, you can explain it better than I can. But what I came to understand when I was educating myself is that you test your saunas in the sauna as a working sauna, as if you are in the sauna using it, instead of taking the heater panels, sending them out for independent testing and having the heater panel tested someplace else where it's not actually in working order. And that was a big motivation for me.
Yeah, it's true. It's probably because if you're testing the sauna itself, you're including the electrical wires and connections. And it's usually the connections that give off high EMF. And so I was working with a building biologist who are a lot more knowledgeable about EMF electrical fields than I was. And she said, you have to be careful with a few things. She says, this is what she discovered when she's been looking at different saunas out there. Just a lot of companies will take averages. Well, of course, because EMF drops off with distance. You could walk in your sauna at 0, up the ceiling at 0. You could take a lot of readings in your sauna at 0. Then you get to what she called point of body contact, the wooden slats you lean against. It could be 10 milligauss, but the average in their sauna could be 2 or 1, okay, if you include all the zeros. So I made sure at our lab, I said, look, I want over 100 readings in the sauna, and everything has to be under 2, and which is TCO or Swedish standards. But I said, at point of body contact, the wooden slats you lean against, those are the points I want you to take averages. So that meaning the seat that you're sitting on, the wooden slats you're leaning against. So when they took 100 of those reading, I think it averaged 0.3 milligauss at point of body contact, which to me is even, I've found with people with EMF sensitivities and stuff like that, they seem to be able to handle that, which is good. It's not, to be fair, it's not 0, but it would average 0.3 milligauss or less, right?
Yeah. And it's from my understanding and my own research, that is some of the lowest in the industry in terms of what you're being exposed to when you're in the actual sauna. And that and the low or no VOCs, those were the two big reasons why I really chose a Radiant Health Sauna, because I was like, that's important to me. There are a lot of saunas on the market. There are many I didn't trust. There are others that are reputable. But when it came down to it, I really had to feel that I could trust in terms of what I was putting my body into. And I don't know if it's because I now own my own sauna. I don't know, or if it is these things being taken into consideration. I feel better coming out of your sauna than any sauna of all the saunas on the market.
That's very nice.
I was in it last night. I spent 40 minutes at 124 degrees. That's my sweet spot.
Yeah.
And I came out and I'm like, I just always feel my best coming out of this sauna. And again, maybe because it's brand new and it's mine, but I really do feel different using your saunas.
Yeah. The nice thing, and I'll bring this up just so I don't forget, if someone is toxic and you've had a lot of time in your recovery, let's say they have Lyme disease or heavy metals or label fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, or any of the above, if someone has first starting to use the sauna, they have to go slow. I'm not saying they have to. I strongly suggest they go slow. The reason being is often they have compromised phase 2 detox pathways. So let's say you're sweating out 90% of your toxins, heavy metals to your skin. And this is just an approximate figure, okay? And let's say 10% your liver's having to deal with. What they already have compromised phase 2 detox pathways, it makes it worse. They'll get like a Herxham reaction, headache, flu-like symptoms. So to minimize that, I always suggest if someone's toxic, start off doing it every 3 days. You might do that for 3 or 4 weeks or even longer. Then every other day for 3 or 4 weeks or longer, and then eventually you can do it daily. Because if and all of us that have had health problems, we want our life back that we had before. So you're going to be keen. And a lot of people, oh yeah, and then they'll be really good to about day 4. And then they'll say, I got a headache. Well, slow down a bit, right? You've had all these years of being toxic. Now just go slow so that you allow that chance for this toxins to get, and then heavy metals to get out through your skin. The other thing is that, as well as drinking lots of water, you really need to replace your electrolytes and trace minerals. And people sometimes forget that. Say, I'm drinking lots of water. But your body has a defensive mechanism, almost reduces your sweating if you're low on electrolytes and trace minerals. And I didn't realize that once I kind of recovered and I was no longer doing the sauna daily. I do the sauna about 3 times a week. But my month of June was my detox month. And I thought, okay, we're all exposed to toxins. It doesn't make sense to keep my toxic load down. So at month of June, I was using the sauna every day. And one day I'm drinking lots of water and I stopped sweating. Like I'm overheating. What the heck is going on? Because I'm obviously well acclimatized to using an infrared sauna. And I thought, I wonder if I'm low on electrolytes and trace minerals. So I went out of the sauna, I grabbed a package of Dulse. It's a acquired taste, it's seaweed.
Dulse. Did you say Dulse? Yeah.
Yeah. You either like it or you don't like it.
Totally.
Okay? Whatever.
I don't like it, but I'll use it.
Okay. So anyway, it sounds crazy, but I went back in the sauna. I'm chewing on this Dulse. Okay. Yeah. And not right away. It took me about 7 minutes, and then I was sweating profusely again.
No way.
I phoned one of the doctors I really respect on detoxification. I said, Ron, because your body is a defensive mechanism. If you're low on electrolytes and trace minerals, does it minimize your sweating? He said, oh yeah, definitely. So that was a really eye opener for me. And you don't need to chew on Dulse. You can drink coconut water. You can go to a health food store, buy some sort of electrolyte mix. There's a lot of things you can do. Yeah. I just wouldn't suggest something like Gatorade because of all the nonsense that's in there. But yeah, the principle's still the same. So I always tell people, go slow and make sure you increase your electrolytes and trace minerals. If they have, let's say they have a heavy metal problem, they may have some sort of intestinal dysbiosis, which means imbalance of critters in your gut. So they may already have a malabsorption problem. So they may already be low on electrolytes and trace minerals. So if you can increase that at the same time you're doing the sauna, then it really helps.
Yeah. Couple questions for you. So one, I'm only teeny tiny bit educated on this, and I would love to be even clearer on it. So talk to me about the fact that there are certain things we eliminate from our body, mostly or only from sweat. So I was educated to believe that, really one of the only ways that you can get heavy metals and things like mold out of your body is through the sweat detoxification pathway. Are there certain things that sweating is the best way to remove it? Or is that just the fastest, easiest way to remove those toxins?
Well, it's a tough one. And I'll be honest with you. I've talked about my own story. I've had direction from Health Canada that I can't be making any health claims regarding the saunas. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to be careful here. I had to remove, I'll be honest with you, I had to remove all kinds of research papers off my website. Not too happy about it, but that's the way it is. But as far as, there's some good, let's just talk about sweating and heavy metals. Okay. There's some really good studies out there on sweating and heavy metals, whether obviously an infrared sauna or a conventional sauna, you're sweating profusely. If you have compromised phase 2 detox pathways, you're bypassing them. Okay. So you're getting a means to getting it out. I have sometimes, I won't say I have some differences with some practitioners, but it's been suggested out there people with Lyme disease should start off doing the sauna for maybe 5 minutes, okay? And then they do it daily, and then 7 minutes, and then 10 minutes. And for other practitioners have sometimes suggested this, and I'm not a practitioner, I'm just giving you my personal opinion. What happens is they get major Herxheimer reactions, and the reason being is they're not in the sauna long enough to sweat. Okay. So I said, look, don't do it that way. Just try, humor me, just try using it every 3 days and go in there for ideally 20 minutes, get up to 30 minutes if you can, and then you're sweating. So it minimizes the reabsorption or reuptake. Because if you're in the sauna enough to mobilize, but you're not sweating, well, now your body's having to deal with it, But to answer your question, I haven't found any substance, whether that only comes out through sweat. Okay. I just believe that sweating is a really good tool to get rid of, symbiotics, chemicals and toxins, heavy metals kind of thing. I found it for some people, it's been extremely effective in lowering the toxic load. Someone says, well, I'm not toxic. And it's interesting because there's been a few cases, which always kind of, it's interesting. I'll give you an example. The doctor in Calgary, and a woman came out of her sauna. She went in with a white towel, and she came out and her towel was pink, not a bright pink, but it had a pinkish hue. And they go, wow, what have you been exposed to? Have you been working with chemicals? Nope. And then she thought about it, and she says, and this one was around 55. She said, in my youth, in my teenager, I had a bad acne problem. And I think she was using tetracycline or something, and it had the pink filler in there. So years later, this stuff is coming out of her. I also had another clinic in Vancouver. Lovely woman was running the place. It was a detoxification center. And she said, Randy, you got to come down here. So I thought there was something wrong with her sauna, which there wasn't. And she had these beige towels, okay? And they had black marks and brown marks and yellow mark on it. She's, Randy, I can't get these stains out. I laughed. And I said, well, you have two choices. Have your clients bring their own towels, A, or B, go to a darker color, right? But it just shows you the stuff that people are sometimes dumping out.
It's funny. I was in my sauna last night and I bought brand new organic white towels specifically for my brand new sauna that I love. Yeah. And I've been trying to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the sauna, but last Friday I was busy. So I haven't been in since last Wednesday. Yeah. So that was, Wednesday to Sunday. So I hadn't been in for 5 or 6 days. And then sat in the sauna. It does take me a solid 20 minutes before I start sweating, but then it's just pouring off of me. So I stay in for 40 minutes and then I go to shower immediately. And I took my towel off and hung it up in the bathroom. And sure enough, there were, discoloration marks that had come out through my sweat. And I was like, if that doesn't convince somebody right there, and it's not like I had mud on my body. It's not like there was anything on my skin. It literally was where my lower back had been sweaty, right where my thighs had been sweaty, sitting on the towel. And I'm like, that right there shows you that there are things coming out of the sweat.
Yeah, and there's no rhyme or reason as far as timing. One day I was in the sauna. I've been using the sauna for many months. And all of a sudden, some black stuff started oozing out of the left side of my chest. So with my biology background, I'm quite excited about this. The next day, I'm ready. Okay, I got a vial, I got a jar. I'm going to have this stuff tested, right? And guess what? The second day, nothing came out. I was so annoyed with myself.
Oh, no way.
What I had to do was get a Kleenex or something and wipe it and test it. So anyway,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But it really, and then even beyond that, so we're talking a lot about detoxification for people who are going through health crises. And I think that that's a big value for using an infrared sauna. But even beyond that, it's so good for just promoting health in general. It's so good to promote better sleep. It's great for exercise adaptation and recovery. It feels good. There are just so many other reasons to be using an infrared sauna, even beyond the detoxification and a health crisis.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, I think for a lot of conditions now, they talk about the coming around to, I won't talk about the specific conditions, but they talk about everybody's toxic load. Okay. And we're exposed to stuff everywhere, not just what we drink, what we eat, what we're exposed to in the air. So if you can do something to keep your toxic load down, it just doesn't make sense. That's my take on it. It's just
because we're all exposed to it. And so, what I talked about at the beginning of the session before you came in is that some people detoxify better than other people, but you don't know if that's you unless you want to undergo some specialized testing, or ultimately, if you're someone who often doesn't feel great, that might be reason enough to take action to help your body detoxify, whether it's a sauna or something else. It's just always prudent because you can't avoid it. No matter how healthy you eat, even if you eat all organic fruits and vegetables and meats, even if you do all the things, we live in a toxic world and we are exposed to toxins, whether it's a building you may have entered, or a factory or a plant or an older building, or even your own home. You buy a new piece of furniture or you buy a new mattress. We're exposed to this stuff every single day.
It's funny when you look at some of the stuff from the Environmental Working Group and things like that. And there's an organization both in the States and in Canada where they've taken some healthy people, and then they actually looked at, I think it was umbilical cords, and they're looking at placenta. They were looking at toxins in newborn babies. Okay. And just say, okay, these are passed on from the mother. Then they took some healthy people in Canada that had been always ate organic. They've been and they were shocked the fact that they tested for these different toxins and heavy metals. And they said, well, where were I was exposed to? So it's fascinating. And the body stores it, for a long time,
Yeah, the body stores it. And so it's like, even if the past 5 to 10 years you've been super healthy, where were you the 10 or 20 years prior to that? Because it does get stored in the body, in the fat cells, and it can be there forever. The story that you told about the woman who was on the tetracycline, I mean, that's like so crazy. And right there very much speaks to this concept.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, I've also been pleased. This has nothing to do with infrared saunas. I've been pleased if anybody wants to kind of Google Finnish study, sauna use and stuff like this. It's fascinating stuff. And and then to be fair, this wasn't done on an infrared sauna, it's done on conventional saunas, but they looked at longevity and middle-aged Finnish men over, I think it was 2,100 middle-aged men over a 20-year period. That's a good database. And then they looked at heart disease, and I'm not making claims with infrared. I'm just talking about sauna use.
Oh, yeah.
And they looked at heart disease and cancer and stroke, and it was fascinating because if they use the sauna, I think 2 or 3 times a week, it increased longevity by something like 24%. If they use the sauna 4 times a week or more, it increased longevity by, it was like over 40%. And I'm going, why isn't this front page news? Like, this is something that we can all use to, and there's a bunch of different theories, whether it's heat shock proteins or to do with detoxifying. The nice thing is, it's just that sauna use, and to be fair, that was a conventional sauna, but in conventional saunas, because it's a lot hotter, the studies, they averaged about 15 minutes in the sauna. We're here in ours, we can go in 35 minutes, 40 minutes. A lot of times people will say to me, oh, I find saunas too hot. And you say, well, this is different. You might be going in at kind of 115. You may be going to climb up to 135 or 140, or, you said your sweet spot is in the 120s. Yep. And you don't come out feeling wiped out. I sell to a lot of the fire halls, and people say, well, how can they go on a sauna and respond to a call? And they said, well, you actually don't feel wiped out. You're going to be sweating. Okay, there's no question about that. But it's, I'm not saying that all the fire halls, they spend all the time in the saunas, but to them, it's a really good idea to have something to lower the toxic load if you go to a bad call and you're exposed, right?
Yeah. And that's something I notice. If I do my sauna use right, I'm hydrated, I've eaten the right things, I take a shower, I find that I wouldn't say I feel energized afterwards, but I feel just like enlivened after. So it doesn't wipe me out. Whereas, before I got my own sauna, there were times that I would have to use a sauna someplace else. And it could be a steam sauna. It could be the old fashioned dry sauna. And I found it very stressful because of the high heat.
Yeah.
And I almost felt that it wasn't even productive for me. I'm a redhead by birth, and I know that I'm sensitive and I tend to be heat intolerant.
Mm.
And so some of those other really hot environments, like it was just stressful. And A, I wouldn't stay in long enough to get much of a sweat. But then B, I would come out feeling wiped out because it was just stressful. And even in my early days of infrared sauna use, I had the belief of what you alluded to earlier, where it's like more is better. So I would crank the saunas up to 140, 150 degrees and stay in it for 60 minutes, which was just too much for me.
Yeah.
And so now that I've had my own and I have a chance to experiment, I'm like, 123 to 124 is perfection. I feel awesome. I sweat like crazy. I stay in for 40 minutes. I come out feeling great. I take a shower and I'm like, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Instead of coming out of a steam sauna at 180 degrees and you're just depleted.
Yeah, sometimes a conventional sauna 180 to 200 degrees. It's a lot better, isn't it? I think also too, if you're ever buying an infrared sauna and it heats up quite quickly, okay, it's an indication it's not quite in the micron wavelength they're stating. So for me, it's really beneficial to be in the far infrared range. And when you lower the surface temperature of the heater, you slightly increase the micron wavelength, which is what you want. And so it's kind of like if someone says, oh yeah, our saunas can get up to 140 degrees in 15 minutes. Well, I wouldn't buy that sauna because meaning it may have, to be fair, it may have some in the far infrared range, but it might have more in the near infrared range and is heating up the air. And so
that's awesome. That was a question I wanted to ask you about. Let's talk quickly about this concept of far infrared versus near infrared. I know that some saunas really boast about having a variety of the heating elements. And one of the reasons why I chose Radiant Health Saunas is because from my education, the far infrared is the one that really does help you sweat the most. So talk to us a little bit about this concept of what's far infrared versus near infrared and some of the other ones.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is, if I've gone into what I usually do is I go into PubMed or Medline, look at the research papers. And so when I was first exploring infrared myself, the only research papers that I could find as far as saunas, okay, infrared saunas were in the far infrared range. Okay. So, and that means that, and there was a few different studies. To be fair, there's more studies on conventional saunas, but the studies on infrared are all in the far infrared range. So then when the near infrared came out, probably about 10 years ago, I started looking into that. And I was familiar with near infrared. I'm actually a great fan of near infrared and red light therapy in the 630 to 940 nanometer range. Okay. It showed wound healing, tissue repair, mitochondria function improvement. Good stuff. Okay. But if you look at all the studies, it's an interesting thing. There's something called the inverse square law from a light source. So you have to be extremely close to these devices and they have to be in a specific frequency and intensity. Okay. So all these things, all these variables. So to me, it's not really accurate to throw some near infrared lights in there, some bulbs. You'd have to know exactly where they are. And you say, okay, what frequency is it in? What intensity it is and how far away from the body? And the reason why it's important, how far away from the body, there's something called the inverse square law from a light source. Like, what is that? Okay. So you have a light source and let's say you're 1 inch away versus 10 inches away. If you're 10 inches away, it goes 10 times 10 is 100. You put a 1 over top, so you're only getting 1/100th the intensity. Okay. And so that's why when you look at all the research papers, they're either touching the petri dish or touching the skin or extremely close to it. And so to me, you can't take that research from one application to do on light emitting diodes or lasers where they're touching the skin, touching the petri dish between 630 and 940 nanometers. That's some in the red range and some in the near infrared range, and say it applies to the sauna, because that would be, to me, it's misleading. It means, like, people say, well, guess what? You can have, near infrared and middle and far, and you're getting all these different benefits. And if you turn if you set it up that you say near infrared, say, okay, that would be the question asked. Are the heaters are the lights evident? Meaning, would you have to know where to sit in the sauna, and how far away are they from the body? So for myself, because I looked into the idea of near infrared, and I thought, okay, it's a great application to have, but use it separately. Use the sauna for detox. When I have red light therapy and near infrared therapy, there's lots of devices out there. I have a device myself I got a dozen years ago when I first read about it. So I'm not against it, but I think it's inaccurate to say you can use that application in the sauna and get all this benefits as well, right?
That makes sense. It's almost like if your sauna has it, it's kind of wasted effort because you're not getting the benefit from it anyway. And I know some saunas do put the far infrared in there, and it's like, oh, okay. So in concept, it's a great concept and it works, but the application of it, like, it's not doing you any good in a sauna anyway. So why pay the extra for it if it's not it's not really helping you?
Yeah, if you have a competitor that has, let's say, it's full spectrum or something like this, I'd save yourself the money and get one that's just far infrared. Okay. Yeah. And as long as it's got low EMF and low electrical feedback, because to me, I view it as a marketing tool. I don't view it that, because I have yet been able to go into PubMed or Medline and find one research paper on near infrared sauna or one research paper on a full spectrum. So if they were there, I would find it. Or if someone has, I've often had this discussion with some people and even a competitor. And I said, look, if you don't mind, you send me the research paper that support what you're stating. They'll send me the same research papers I found. And I said, well, that doesn't apply to an infrared sauna. Look, a light emitting diode laser in this range and whatever like that. So to me, it's the classic thing is don't take research from one application and say it's going to apply. If they could duplicate exactly in the sauna, but then you'd have a full back of all near infrared lights, and therefore you wouldn't have the far infrared, because now it's taking that area. And so I don't
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Randy, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I knew that we would have a great conversation. I know that my community is going to love it. I'm going to link up this video and the replay and all of the associated locations to radianthealthsaunas.com for anybody who is interested in learning more. I'm a resource. Randy is a resource. The website's amazing. And thank you so much for sharing your story and being here. It's been really awesome.
Have me on, Holly. It's great, and I'd love to hear your experience.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, you too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys, we're going to spend a couple more minutes. I wanted to circle back on something that I was talking about before Randy joined us that I think could be super, super helpful. And if this topic is interesting to you guys, please let me know. I want to try and share something with you. Hold on one second. Hold on. Stay with me. I want to try and share something on my computer. I don't know if it's going to let me share my screen. Oh, I think it might. Hold on. Let me try this. No, I'm scared. I'm not going to do it. This happened last week too. I was going to share my screen and then I'm afraid that I'm going to screw up the technology. So I'm not going to. But Coach Jennifer from my community sent me a link yesterday to a Science Direct article. And it's a research study from October. That's not possible. Can't be October 2021 because we haven't even gotten to October 2021. So that date must not be right. Anyway, there is a research article posted that specifically talks about sauna use as a lifestyle practice to extend life's health span. And I think it's really interesting because that's exactly what Randy was talking about, how there is research that shows sauna use, and in particular infrared sauna use, can really help with health span and lifespan in general. But the one thing I wanted to circle back around and share with you guys that we were talking about before Randy joined us was some things that you can do to facilitate detoxification beyond sauna use. I know we spent quite a bit of time talking about sauna use here, largely because that has been one of the key tools in my healing. And as Randy said, when he joined the feed, it wasn't all we did to get healthy. It was a key part in my health journey and coming back from a health challenge. But there were other things that I did as well to really help my body heal itself. the human body does have incredible potential for healing itself. And something I notice with my private clients and people that I work with offline is there is a tendency to think, if you have received a diagnosis of some kind of an ailment, a disease, a chronic health challenge, there's a tendency for a lot of us to start to believe that it is a sentencing that we are stuck with for the rest of our life. It took me a solid 1.5 years after my diagnosis to finally decide that just because I had these very substantial diagnoses, it didn't mean I couldn't get healthy. And so for about 1 year, I was licking my wounds and I was very much feeling disempowered because I had been given the diagnosis of health challenges that are hard to heal. Lyme disease, an autoimmune disorder, thyroid issues. These are things that you hear people talk a lot about where it's like it's really hard to heal them. And I got stuck in this cycle of really believing like, I got this diagnosis, I can't get better, I'm stuck with it. And the truth is the human body does have great propensity for healing and for recovering. And when you create an environment of healing and relief and space for your body to get healthy again, it can and it will. Sometimes it just takes specific actions, specific strategies, and specific protocols. So some of the things that you can do to really help facilitate greater health, in my opinion, I think there are a lot of people that will agree with these things. But again, I don't want to get into too much, is there science to support this or that? But some of the things that I'm going to say in a moment really are general good suggestions to promote health. And you are able to take action to really promote your health and to bring your body back to full vitality and, yes, overcome these health challenges. So I have had a lot of blood work done over the past couple of years, and I do know that my Lyme disease is in remission. I am no longer acute. I know that my thyroid is on the mend and that my autoimmune antibodies are looking healthier and better. And I know that that is related to many of the things that I've been doing to help myself feel better. So the first thing is to really understand that regardless of what your health challenges are, there are ways and things that you can do to feel better. And complete healing is absolutely possible if you're willing to search and try out different remedies, to try out different things to really help support your health. It's possible to get healthy again. And because today is about Detox 101, I do think it's really important to keep an eye towards supporting your body in its detoxification pathways. So just to circle back to something I talked about a little bit very quickly earlier in this segment, just some very basic things that you can do to help keep your body clean and happy and to promote its own innate systems of detoxification. Do make sure that you are getting super clean, purified water. Ever since the early 90s, I have very much been an advocate for ensuring that the water you drink every day is really and truly purified, clean, and good. And I can't tell you how many households I've been into where they say, our water was tested. We have great water here. And the truth is, any municipal water has contaminants in it. I am very, very much a proponent of having some kind of an external water purification system so that at least the water that you're drinking every day is as clean as it possibly can be. There are incredible water purification systems on the market. There are commercial systems, there are consumer systems. If you're interested in suggestions there, let me know, send me an email. I have a brand in particular that I love, but there are lots of brands out there that go beyond the concept of those cartridge filters that you kind of put into a container of water and put it into your refrigerator. It is a little bit more complex than that. Be selective about the foods that you eat. Choose the highest quality foods that you're able to have access to. If you're able to buy some things that are organic, I think that that is a great step in the right direction. And if you're able to eat all organic, I think that it may be a gamble, but it certainly seems to be a great gamble. And it certainly seems to be something that is a positive step in keeping your food clean. Limit alcohol. Alcohol really congests and toxifies the liver. So when we drink alcohol, the liver has to process it out of your blood. And while your liver will do that, your liver is also very busy detoxifying your blood from all of the other toxins that you're exposed to. So if you really want to keep your liver happy, it's important to really minimize your use of alcohol and minimize everything else that tends to really put more demand on the liver. And that's prescription medications. Obviously, if you are on a prescription, your body needs it. But in terms of long-term goals, if you're able to get yourself back to full health so that you don't need prescription medications, that's a really wise end goal, even if it is a longer term goal for you. Minimize over-the-counter pain medications of any sort. Ensure proper elimination. Drink a lot of water so that you are eliminating as much as possible. If you have a tendency, like me, to be on the side of constipation, do some research and find some ways that you can really improve your own elimination so that you are eliminating in a very healthy way, at least once per day. Consider a food elimination detox once or twice per year. There's lots of different detoxes that you can do on the market. I'm a fan of food elimination detoxification. So instead of just drinking water for 4 days, a water fast or a juice fast, I'm actually a fan of doing an elimination diet where you only eat certain foods for a week or two, and you just take away all of the foods that tend to be a little bit more problematic. You can do your own research on that. Consider a liver detox supplement or some of the herbs that are very supportive for liver detoxification. I have a couple of products that I use from time to time, a couple times during the year, where I just feel like I want to support my liver and give it a little bit more love. There are a lot of supplements that you can buy at health food stores. And lastly, make sure that you're sweating at least 2 to 3 times per week. I don't know how much research is out there in terms of the time, but in my education and my experience, you want to be sweating for at least 20 minutes, 2 to 3 times per week. Sweating through exercise does count. Sweating in a hot bath does count. And while I do both of those things, I also absolutely love using a sauna because it helps me sweat the most. So earlier this year, I finally bought my own infrared sauna, which was one of the best investments I've ever made. I'm super, super excited. I absolutely love it. I use it 2 to 3 times per week, and it just really helps me sweat like crazy. So if you are interested in this topic, please leave a comment. If you are here with me live or if you're watching this in playback, let me know. If you have any questions, pop them in the comment section. I'll keep an eye out and try to circle back around with you. And if you are interested in learning more about getting your own infrared sauna, I chose Radiant Health Saunas, Randy Gomm's company. After doing all of my own research and looking at all of the different brands, I went with Radiant Health Saunas for a number of reasons, some of the reasons that we talked about here today. And if you are interested in taking a look at any of the Radiant Health Saunas, Randy has been so kind as to offer my community a discount. So you can get, I think it's $500 off a sauna if you just reach out to them. Tell them that you heard about Radiant Health Saunas from me. Use my name. If you do end up going with Radiant Health Saunas, they will give you $500 off. And that's actually how I one of the reasons I went with Radiant Health Sauna, I used somebody else's referral and I got a discount on my Radiant Health Sauna because I learned about Radiant Health Sauna from another expert in the industry, another colleague that I follow. And so it's just a great way to save $500 so that it brings the price of the sauna down a little bit more. All you have to do is reach out to radianthealthsaunas.com, mention my name. I got the E2H sauna. It's a 2-person sauna. It's a little bigger than the 1-person, but the footprint is actually not that big. I have it sitting in our living room. So it's small enough and non-intrusive enough that it's literally sitting in my living room and it doesn't take up that much space. It was so easy to put together. It doesn't require additional electrical wiring. You can just plug it into the wall, and supposedly it doesn't drive your electric bill up. I haven't taken a close look at my electric bill yet. I will do that. But from my understanding, it doesn't drive your electric bill up because it's not a big, huge sauna. So I got the 2-person Elite E2H sauna, which is very reasonably priced. And I absolutely love it. So questions and comments. If you're here with me live, say hello. I've been wanting to do this segment and this topic for a very long time. Let me know if it's helpful for you. If you have any questions, I would love to support you. Let's see here. Gail Hopshire, hello. Patricia, so glad you're here. Heidi, I'm concerned about my son who is a mechanic. He's breathing the chemicals he uses, not to mention he gets it on his skin. He has breakouts on his legs. He said it's from his pants. If he wears them more than once and doesn't wash them when it happens. Yeah. And I think like that is similar to Randy's story. He was a firefighter and he was getting exposed to environmental toxins from a number of places. And I think that, our loved ones that work in industries where they are exposed to chemicals and cleaning agents and, things like that, they are going to be exposed to these contaminants more so than those of us who aren't exposed to that in our occupation or in our lifestyle. So I do think it's wise, Heidi, I don't know how open-minded your son is to this concept. I even admitted for many years, I kind of thought it was silly, this concept of helping your body detoxify. But I do think that is a great conversation to have with your son in terms of, hey, ask him to do his own research. Just like Randy said, get on PubMed. If you guys aren't familiar with PubMed or Google Scholar, it is basically the warehouse for a lot of legitimate research and a lot of the science that is out there. And so you can do your own independent research looking at the studies that have been put out either on PubMed or Google Scholar. And maybe that will help your son. It's like when your skin starts to be affected by your environment, something is up. And that actually was one of the signals when I was living in my apartment in LA that something was up. Early on, I was getting skin irritation and skin rashes. I ended up having so many health signs that something was up. I don't know why it took me 6 years to figure it out, but I guess I'm a sucker for pain. I've got a very high pain tolerance. And so it took a solid 6 years for me to really kind of figure out what was going on. So Heidi, I hope today's episode was helpful for you. Jessica, where do you have your sauna? Yeah, in my living room, believe it or not. A lot of people put them in their bathroom so that you can hop out of the sauna and jump right into the shower. There are some saunas that are designed to live outdoors, but you have to specifically get an outdoor sauna. A lot of people will put them in a basement or an extra bedroom. I have a decent sized living room, and there is a corner in our living room that was kind of empty space. And so I just snuggled it back into this corner of my living room, and really and truly, it's only probably about this wide. I mean, it's just wide enough that I can turn sideways and put my legs up. So it's the width of my legs basically. And it's just a little higher, than it's maybe it's 6 feet tall. They're not super, super big if you get a smaller one. And that is one reason why I went with the Radiant Health Sauna, because it was a footprint that I could work with. It was also really notoriously easy to put together. And that was another reason I wanted one that was super easy to put together. It comes in like 9 pieces and you just go boom, 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 and put a top on it. It was so easy. I think we put ours together in maybe an hour and a half. Why did you go with the 2-person over the 1-person? The reason I went with a 2-person sauna instead of a 1-person. So guys, I did a lot of research before I bought my sauna, like years of research. By the way, I had been wanting a sauna for the past 3-4 years now. When I was in LA, I obviously couldn't buy one because I couldn't put it anywhere, but my research started 4 years ago. And I started looking at all the different brands when I would go to a gym or when I would go to a sauna, spa, retail storefront. I was always looking around. So Heidi, I actually went to a, what do you call that? Like a showroom, a sauna showroom, so that I could actually see what the different sizes look and felt like. I wanted a big one so that I could like stretch out and like do yoga in it, but they are so big and I didn't have space for it. So I also looked at the 1-person, and many of the 1-person saunas feel like a coffin. I got claustrophobic in the 1-person saunas. Now that's me. I tend to get claustrophobic. I tend to be uncomfortable in closed in spaces. So the 1-person saunas that I looked at were, I mean, literally your heaters are right here and the roof is just over your head. You literally can't move. And I just felt a little claustrophobic. I also wanted to be able to lay down in it. And so I got one that was big enough that I could lay down in it. In mine, my 2-person sauna, I lay down and I put my legs up the walls. So my legs are actually being exposed to the infrared heat panels so that my legs are getting direct far infrared heat as well as my body. And so I wanted one that I could lay down in. You know, if you're in there for 40 or 45 minutes, I wanted to be able to lay down. And that's generally what I do. Sometimes I read, sometimes I get on my phone for a little while, but most of the time I just lay down in my sauna. And so that's why I decided to go with the 2-person. It's big enough, but it's not too big. And I had space in my house. I knew that the Radiant Health Sauna 2-person would fit in my living room perfectly. And I was right. I absolutely love it. Dennis Murphy, just wanted to let you know your glute exercises really help my lower back. I'm so glad. Yay. That's so good. Stay tuned because later this year, I'm probably going to do some kind of a glutes project activation, group activation of some sort. So I hope you guys will stay tuned for that. Heidi, all great points. Thanks for sharing. Yes. And just to repeat, if you are interested in learning more about infrared saunas, I cannot recommend enough Radiant Health Saunas out of Vancouver, Randy Gomm's company. And if you do decide to purchase a sauna yourself, if you decide to go with Radiant Health, you can get $500 off by mentioning my name. That's a sweet deal. It makes it even more of a doable investment. Listen, saunas are definitely an investment. And you don't want to, I would discourage you from purchasing a sauna that is very inexpensive. There is a direct correlation between price and quality in saunas. And so when I was looking at them, I was only looking at the top 3 brands. I was looking at Sunlighten, Radiant Health Saunas, and Clearlight were the only 3 saunas I was considering. After I did my research, I looked at a whole bunch of brands. I narrowed it down to those 3 brands. And then I decided to go with Radiant Health Saunas, for all the reasons that we talked about here today. And so, yeah, that is it, guys. I have rambled on and on and on. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hot Tea with Holly. I will be back here next week for another episode, same time, Tuesdays at 1:00 on the East Coast. And I'm going to be featuring experts and doing interviews like this a couple times a month. And then there's also going to be some episodes where it's just me talking about a relevant topic. So I hope you'll be here with me again next week, or at least watch in playback. If you're watching in playback, please say hello. And if you have any questions about any of the things that I've talked about, feel free to reach out to me via email, holly@hollyperkins.com. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.